Well, John, should we get going?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for being a part of the conversation today, everybody. If I haven't had the chance to meet you, I'm Dahl. I get to serve as the lead pastor at Calvary in Alexandria. And we're able to gather this way because of what we call the Calvary Partner Network, which is a huge experiment we are doing at Calvary to bring together congregations that want to grow, that want to thrive. And we received a Lilly grant that's allowed us to do this big experiment, to figure out how it is that we work together. We believe ministry is just way too hard to go it alone. And so we want to bring churches together because when we come together, the ideas we produce, the work that we do is just so much more fruitful. So thank you for being a part of this today. We have as a guest today, Andy Addis. Andy, wave your hand there. Andy comes from, I'll let him introduce himself, but he comes all the way to us from down in Kansas, and I'll let him share just a little bit about his story before we dive into the conversation. What we want to do is to talk with all of you about Christmas. Christmas is coming, and we don't want to talk to you about what you're going to preach or what you're going to teach. We know you're going to do an excellent job with all of that because you're great theologians, incredible thinkers. You're going to deliver incredible messages. What we want to talk about is how do we leverage Christmas in such a way that we can begin a faith journey for folks who maybe aren't on that journey. You all know the statistics about church attendance, but everybody celebrates Christmas. So how do we leverage the fact that everybody celebrates Christmas in order to invite them into a next step with Jesus, really? So with that, what I'm going to do today is lay out kind of 5 things that we fuss with here at Calvary, kind of big picture items. And then what I want to do is to talk through each of them. And I want to do some kind of group sharing. So we can do that either by speaking or you can put things in the chat. But I want to hear, I don't want this just to be one-way conversation. Andy and I dumping what we do at our churches. We want to hear what you guys are doing in your unique context as well, because that's how we learn from each other. So before we dive into how do we get ready for Christmas, Andy, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
I'd be glad to do that. I love to be on a chat call, by the way, where as a Southern Baptist, you all think I'm from the South because they all think I'm a Northerner, which is funny. I'm in Kansas. So welcome to my world. I pastor a rural network of churches. We're about 13 strong in our collected numbers that we count. And then we have 2 other levels of assistance and partnership that we don't count in our official numbers. And we're officially going online in January as a national strategy for our denomination's church planting and revitalization.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Andy has been really a huge tool in us beginning to think about how do we develop this partner network. So really grateful for you, Andy.
Thank you.
So we're going to dive into the conversation. And again, I want to hear from you. So I'll lay out some things that we're up to at Calvary, and then I want to hear what you have to say as well. So 5 kind of big pieces to the puzzle I want to throw out there as we begin to think about how is it that we get ready for Christmas. And I'm just going to have John put them in the chat while I just lay them out there. The first is invitation. How are we inviting people to join us for Christmas? How are we being uber intentional during this time when we know everybody's going to celebrate Christmas to consider joining us or being a part of whatever it is we do for Christmas? So I want to talk about invitation. Second thing I want to talk about is a Christmas theme. And this may seem kind of like a small one, but I think especially this year, the years we've been going through, what are we wrestling with for a theme when it comes to getting people ready for Christmas? Third piece is how are we reaching out into our community and serving our community this time of year? I want to hear from you. I know many of you are doing some great things in your community around Christmas, to give back and to invest in your community. Fourth thing is hospitality. When people come through the door or even approach your church on Christmas Eve, what are some of the things that you're doing with your congregation to let those guests, those people who maybe haven't darkened the doors since last Christmas, what are you doing to make sure they go, hey, these people care about me? And then the last thing, number 5, is just talking about invitation. On the other side of Christmas, how do we use Christmas as an opportunity to invite people to join us again, to come back and maybe take that first step on their journey of faith? So invitation, Christmas theme, community service. We're going to talk about Christmas Eve hospitality, and lastly, that invitation to come back and join us. So first off, I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing at Calvary. For invitation. Here at Calvary, we of course use all kinds of social media tools. We do Facebook invites, those kinds of things. We boost those tools to get the word out, but we really design it as an experience that's not Calvary's. We want everyone in our community to know that they are invited. We even do, sounds weird, we do a couple of billboards in town to invite people, say, hey, Christmas is coming. We want to invite you to be a part of what's going on here at Calvary. We want to celebrate Christmas with you. Another thing we do, and a couple of you who are part of the network already have done this with us, is we're kind of old fashioned. We put together simple invite postcards here at Calvary that give the worship times, and we hand these out every single Sunday during the month of December. And we say, hey, we all have friends who have been turned off by church. They don't go to church. They don't want anything to do with church. This is an opportunity to give them a great experience because we know how much you love your church. And so we give them these postcards, and believe it or not, it actually works. Kind of sometimes the old fashioned way of inviting people to church, it works, old fashioned postcard. So we have tools that we put together to invite people to church. The second thing is we hold a few events in December that drive people towards Christmas. So a few of those, we do a women's event. Our executive minister, Angie Larson, put together a great women's event that we're holding. It's a women's Advent brunch. And it's that event where a lot of your insider folks, they gather together with their daughters. They come, they have a great experience. And again, we say, hey, you all know people who are in need of a church home. Let's invite them to Christmas. A couple other things we do a kids and carols event for the community. So just an event to bring kids and their families to Calvary. We do it all for free. We have all kinds of crafts, and they make ornaments. They do all kinds of activities. And then we have a little program, singing carols, telling the Christmas story. And again, using that as a tool to say, hey, let's invite those other friends and family we know to join us for Christmas. And then lastly, because we're Lutherans, sorry, Andy, but we hold an event called Carols and Cocktails up here in Minnesota. And so we invite people to come and join for a night. I know, I'm sorry, Andy, but we invite folks to come to it's actually a wedding venue in our community called Gathered Oaks, where our band is rocking and we share beverages, but mostly it's a fellowship event where people feel comfortable inviting, especially those people who've had a bad experience with church, come and join us for a night. And it's amazing what God does over those tables at that event. So that's a little bit about invitation, what we're up to. Andy, can I turn it over to you and share a little bit what you guys do at Crosspoint?
Absolutely. And first of all, just let me make a reference to your last activity there, because that needs a comment. You know, if you go fishing with the Baptist, you at least have to take 2, because if you only take 1, he'll drink all your beer. But if you take 2, neither one of them will touch him. Just thought Lutherans might think that was funny, so I would share that with you. Yeah, when it comes to invitations, if I could lay some philosophical groundwork, because I'm in complete agreement. Everything that you said, social media posts, postcards. We do something a little bit with postcards. I'll share that with you. But one of the things we made a switch to in 2018 and really embraced in 2019. Tom Rayner, who is kind of a statistician, and he's a publishing guru. He had a podcast in which he speculated, and then they did some testing to see if it was correct. And the speculation was that as the average church attender, and we all know this, the average church attender is no longer 3 to 4 times a month; it's 1 to 3 times a month. That's your good attendance. He made the speculation that Christmas Eve and Easter were no longer primarily about visitors attending, but that your bump was when all of your regular attenders showed up at the same time. And so we did in 2019, we did a study, and what we found out was that less than 20% of those who came to our 8 Christmas Eve services were visitors. They were all just our regulars who were showing up at the same time. So that changed some things for us, because yes, we want to present the gospel and draw the net for that 20%. But then there's also a huge target market for us at discipleship and re-engagement at the Christmas season as well. So part of our advertising, part of our pull for invitation isn't just come join us for the first time. It's, man, we'd love to see you again. We'd love to re-engage with you. So that was just a different perspective. One of the things I would share that was a little different with the postcards, you're 100% right. Postcards work. They work so well that we stopped doing our normal greeting time during the Christmas series, and we leave postcards on the seats and use the greeting time to fill it out and then put it in the offering bucket, because we'll actually put a stamp on it and mail it for you. So if you'll fill it out, and then the first week I was like, oh, I forgot. The next week, it's amazing. They come back with names and addresses and people they want to send those to, and then people ask for other cards. So we make that a part of our worship experience. The invitation replaces the greeting period. So you're greeting somebody that'll be there in 2 or 3 weeks, if this works, is what we do. We also do the tear off informational cards, so that everything we give them for that series, the front of it is fill in the blank notes or whatever, but the back of it is information that you can hand off. And that way everything has 2 purposes: for the Sunday that you come, and for the Monday through Saturday that you meet people that you could give that to. So yeah, in agreement with all that, just a couple little tweaks on how we think about the invitation and how we do the postcards. But yeah, would love to hear from the rest of you. I think you can't go wrong pushing Christmas and Easter. You just can't.
I love that kind of shift to re-engagement. I think that's especially true, Andy, this year, when we think about all the people that are sort of marginally coming back, kind of dipping their toe back in the water. I appreciate that. Thanks. Others, what kind of thing? What are you doing in your context to invite people to be a part of what we're up to? Just wave your hand and we'll call on you. Not everyone at once. Hey, Mugas.
Yeah, I'll may add a postcard thing. We last year did this and then committed to doing it again this year, writing handwritten notes on all the ones to our members and visitors. So like we're doing a postcard really similar, actually very similar to the one you have there, Hans. And so as a staff over the next few weeks, we'll be writing notes on the, hundreds of those that'll go in the mail. So yeah, that's one of the tweaks we do too. We did it last year because we were so disconnected and still just online. And the thought was, well, let's see if we can do it again. And it's a lot of writing, but it's cool.
Awesome, Mugas. I love it. Others of you. All right, we'll go on then. All right, Christmas theme is number 2. We want to talk a little bit about. We at Calvary, we pick a theme every year that we wrestle with from during the traditional season of Advent. And this year, we thought it appropriate as we think about the year that we've all lived through to really address how tired people are. And so you've probably seen this theme in many different places. It's a line from O Holy Night, a weary world rejoices. And for us, at least in our context, we find it really important to speak into that reality that there are so many families right now that are just plain tired. They're tired of the political divisions in their families. They're tired of being in school, being out of school, worrying about their kids being sick, worrying about fighting about things like vaccinations. We live in a weary world right now, and so we're going to speak into that reality from the time Thanksgiving is done through Christmas. And I'm curious, Andy, what are you guys doing at Crosspoint?
Yeah, we every year, you mentioned a tension. There's always a tension for us between, do we do traditional or do we do felt need, right? And sometimes at Christmas, the felt need is the traditional, right? It's that they want to be drawn back into some of the things that they're just familiar and comfortable with. So we have a pattern. And one year we will go traditional on the message. We're going to stay in Luke chapter 2 for 5 weeks, right? We're just going to go through, what about the shepherds? What about the angels? And we just stay right there. Well, that year, then our worship becomes a little experimental, new songs and drama pieces and all of that. So you get the traditional with the kind of the felt need, the something unique. Well, this year our theme is Emmanuel, but not the I. It is the Old Testament, specifically leading into the New Testament. We're going to do very different theological theophanies when God was with us throughout the biblical history, and then end with the Christmas story. Actually, we're going to end with the second coming. So that's going to be very kind of felt need. It's going to be a little non-traditional. So our worship is going to be very simple and Christmas carol-y. And that way we're going to try and hit both of those. And that's been our pattern. We just choose, we let the teaching agenda drive which one goes. And this year it's kind of out of the box for teaching and more traditional for worship.
That's great. That's great. I appreciate that, Andy. Others of you have a theme for Christmas picked out? Mary, you must have a theme for Christmas picked out. What are you guys doing at Good Shepherd?
That's kind of an interesting topic because we had planned a Weary World Rejoices this summer, and then we saw you guys come out with a Weary World Rejoices.
So we're going to do Merry Christmas, you filthy animals.
That's right. So anyway, somehow maybe great minds think alike, but it's going to be so traditional in our scriptural focus, but just addressing the weariness out there and bringing the hope of the gospel.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Any others want to share what you're up to?
We're transitioning our Advent theme is You've Got a Home Here, and kind of part of that leading to Christmas. But each Sunday will be, the stereotypical themes of Advent Sundays: hope, peace, love, joy. Hope has a home here, peace has a home here, love has a home here, joy has a home here. Christmas is going to be God has a home here. And the obvious is, well, no, duh, God has a home in the church. But the message will be really along the lines of the weary world rejoices. I'm writing this sermon as I speak right now. It's coming out of my mouth. But those moments of feeling like, why would God come into the world I'm living in? Why would God come into the mess of my family? Why would God come into the family gathering that I just endured, where we're fighting about all those things you just talked about? But God is present in those things. So thanks for writing my Christmas Eve sermon. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Awesome. Well, let's keep going here. Community service. How are we serving our community during the Christmas season? I've inherited here at Calvary a really simple tradition, and maybe it's true at your church as well. We simply do the old-fashioned giving tree, and we put up a big old tree in our gathering area. We put ornaments on that tree and people snag those, and on those ornaments are gifts that are needed for families in the community through our United Way partnership. It's also a place where folks can grab gift needs to our preschool. We have a preschool, so some of those families and the school itself, some needs there. But also, we're starting a partnership in Ghana, and so there are some items like mosquito nets and things like that that people can pull off the ornaments off of that. They purchase the item, they bring it back. It's a great way and a great symbol to have that tree right there in our narthex as a reminder of what we're all about. So that's a little bit, ours is pretty darn simple when we think about how it is that we give back. Andy, what are your churches? What do they do to intentionally give during the season?
Yeah, this is where we go big or go home. Our tribe, our denomination has a spring, summer, winter, fall missions offering. Well, we decided not to do that. So we do everything for all 4 of those in the Christmas season. We end up having double the offering than if we spread it out through over the course of a year. We've been able to experience that. We've added to that a 5th element. There's a giving piece that goes to our Harvester Foundation, which is kind of like the Calvary Network, but it is our church planting arm to plant locally. So that is, we push that every weekend as a giving option, and that 100% of that is divided between those 5 entities, and no administrative cost goes all to that. But the bigger issue is that we have service at 2 levels. We consider our grow groups, our cell groups, to be our lowest level mission strategy and the boots on the ground. So every one of them have adopted some kind of place, whether it's an open door pregnancy center or a first responders kitchen. There are different things like that. Well, we want them to serve there. But then each church takes on a task as well. And this is where I'm really excited. This is the 4th year in Hutchinson, where I'm at, and our broadcast campus is. We have one of the lowest income school districts in the state of Kansas. 95% of the kids are on free and reduced lunches. I mean, it's a poor place. So we got in the door, we got to know these folks, the teachers, and after a year, they started to trust us. And my missions pastor said, "What do you need? What if we could do something for you? What do we need?" And we expect them to say, gifts for the kids or blah, blah, blah. They said, "These kids need shoes. The ones that they're wearing have holes in them, or they're too big or too small because they're hand-me-downs." And so instead of just doing shoes, it's a whole process. It starts at the end of September. They take professional footologists, I don't know, those guys that work at shoe stores, and they have the measuring tools, and they go in and they measure every single kid's feet to get the right size. That kid then gets to pick a brand, a color, and a style. So if they want black and gold Nikes, size 18 boys, whatever you got, whatever you want, then that goes on a card. And the people of our church will pick 1 or 2 cards, and they have to get that exact pair of shoes and that exact size, wrap them. And then it's become such a thing that out of 400 kids, we don't have enough shoes to go around. So then there's mittens and underwear and scarves and hats. They're all a part of the mix as well. The school the last 2 years has shut down for 2 days for their unboxing days. They let us come in with about 100 volunteers. We go into every room, throw a Christmas party, and the kids get to unbox their shoes. And it's just big unwrapping days. And the teachers weep, and we get to do special assembly, and it's just pretty special. So what I would say is that we do a wide variety of things like you do, but man, we hone in on one place where we can do something really good. Craig Groeschel says, if you chase 2 rabbits, you miss them both, right? And so we just as a church decide we're going to chase 1 rabbit and do it. We're going to catch that thing the best we possibly can. There's all kinds of need, but at Christmas, we're going to hit one, and we're going to hit it hard like that.
I love it. That's great advice, Andy. Thanks. All right, others of you, what are you doing for the community at Christmas time? Aaron, I know this is a big thing for you. You guys are for Chippewa. Aaron, what are you guys up to?
We're trying to keep it simple this year. And all we're doing is we created a webpage called Do Good This Christmas. Do Good This Christmas in Chippewa. And what we did is we intentionally went out to all the local charities and basically said, hey, we want to partner with you and see how we can help you. So rather than trying to, we're just trying to organize and compact everything, streamline everything into one page where people can go to it, look at the local charity that we're partnering with. There's a drop down list of all the things that they need, whether it's food pantries or clothes closet places, all that good stuff. And then we're encouraging them to do good and go out when they're grocery shopping or shopping in general to buy those stuff that are on the lists and then drop them off here, and we disperse them into the agencies. So yeah, we're just trying to so we're connecting with all the local charities, and then with one of the schools that we've adopted has a huge list of things that they need to, that we're gonna, and then we need to raise the school that we adopted. We raise this year, we have to raise $12,000 for another school year of weekend kids meals. So that's going to be our focus too this Christmas, is to raise that money as well.
Love it. Awesome, Aaron. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to share something you're up to this Christmas? All right, we'll keep cruising. Christmas Eve hospitality. Once people finally come through the doors, you've done all this preparation and invitation. You got people who you haven't seen since last Christmas or since Easter. You got your whole church family in the room. What are you doing to provide that kind of hospitality? And I'll just share a few things that we really focus in on at Calvary. One of the biggest things is just to acknowledge that they're in the room. Acknowledge that there are people who have not either have not been to church in ages, or maybe don't consider themselves a part of church or Christianity at all, to acknowledge that that they're in the room. I always like to use the line, you know what, there's some of you that were drugged here by grandma tonight, and I get it. To acknowledge that they're in the room so they know that, hey, we're not just talking to the folks who come every Sunday. This is for you too. That's the biggest thing. But a few other things that we do, we give gifts to folks who acknowledge that they are first-time guests or they're new to Calvary. I'm sure many of you do that. We invite them to stop at the welcome desk. We do a photo booth. I know it sounds kind of goofy, but we do a photo booth so people can take their Christmas picture. They all want to do it anyway. They're dressed up. So we put together a photo booth. And then we always make sure on Christmas Eve, we've got the A team of greeters. Every church has an A team. You want your A team on, opening doors and welcoming people with big smiles on their faces. So just a few things that we do to make sure from the moment people step through the door, hey, they're welcome here, and we're glad they showed up. Andy, what about you?
Yeah, we do several of the same things you're talking about. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because when you first mentioned it, I'm like, I don't think we do anything for hospitality. I don't think we're very hospitable. But yeah, on that vein, we absolutely do. December 1 is the annual walk through your facilities with new eyes walk. So every one of our locations, if you've seen something for 3 months, you quit seeing it. So we ask them to walk backwards through their facility. It's an old copy editor's trick, by the way. When you read a paper, after you've read it a couple times, you read mistakes, but you correct them in your mind and the mistake is still there. So you read the paper backwards. So whatever way you normally walk through the church backwards. As you do that, you end up seeing some things. So we want to get our facilities top notch. We do a photo booth as well. I don't think it's cheesy at all. We actually did it because we recognized that online there were just hundreds of people posing beside the same tree in the foyer. And then we went, oh, people are actually doing that. Why don't we help them with that? And it's become a thing now. People actually do New Year's cards based off their Crosspoint picture, right? Where they come and they take their picture there, which is great. One of the things that we do for hospitality is that we try and treat the last couple services, Christmas Eve especially, that's the big deal for us, and the last couple services before Christmas as kind of Christmas parties. So there's punch, there's cookies, We encourage the gathering, and the way that we do it and try and get some additional attendance is we invite every single high school choir, band, jazz band to play in the foyer in the month of January. So we want that, and then their parents come in between services, we bring them donuts and this and that. So we'll always have some kind of band playing in the foyer or choir that's singing, and boy, the people just eat it up. They applaud, and the parents love it, and we get this new crowd. So we just treat every one of those, every service the last 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas is like a Christmas party, and that's how we want people to feel when they come in.
That's great. Love it. Others of you, what are some things you do for hospitality on Christmas Eve or leading up to Christmas Eve? Anything unique you do? Taylor.
I think it's going to be kind of a return to outdoor worship in a sense. So when we were doing everything outside our building, I think people were just a little bit more open to having to do things differently. So I feel like the A-team inside, right? The folks that have been tried and true ushers are going to be in that spot. The people that are bubbly and actually welcoming are going to be at the doors. But also then the flexible folks that can act redonkulous outside the building. Might be me, might be somebody else. But with signs, welcoming people in and wanting to have that first instance, like, do I have to go through this door? But, oh, something's happening here. And when we were doing outdoor worship, the pastors and staff and volunteers, we were kind of lined up and down the street, both entrances, making sure that people knew that this was a spot to turn and hey, we're happy you're here with Christmas swag and all that. So that's going to be one thing I'm excited for, because we've been back indoors since June, but I'd say that from a hospitality standpoint, we have reverted back to the same old, but the culture has changed, the church has changed, and it doesn't make it any easier. It's just the reality of, hey, we can improve upon this. And I think that events like Christmas provide that opportunity to kind of re-engage. Hey, remember when we did this just 6 months ago? Let's maybe do that again. Let's maybe even make it be more of a regular routine thing. So, but yeah, we'll be doing the photo booth as well. I start to become curious on, do we hire an actual photographer to take some nice photos? We've done that for confirmation and the like. Do we have somebody out in the gathering space or somewhere in the building to be taking those nice photos that people can use? Most people have a smartphone, but not everybody's still good at taking the best pictures. So curious on that.
Love it. Thanks, Taylor.
Can
Others?
I jump in on that real quick?
Yeah.
Because we did that. We hired a photographer one year to do it. And it may work differently for you, but that was like the worst year for us because people wanted the photos immediately. So we just keep staff there that are willing to use other people's smartphones. And boy, that's been the hit for us. So I don't know if that's helpful, but we've been down that road. And if you don't need to pay the dumb tax we paid, don't pay it.
No, definitely open to that. Truthfully, that's probably how it would go. And you would lose track of who's actually who. And if they're not folks you're familiar with. But yeah, I just love the idea of, maybe it's because I've seen the photos that some of our staff have uploaded on their phones to our Facebook page or whatever. But those folks probably have nicer phones than we do.
Well, and when you have a volunteer, it's a touch point too, which is always a powerful thing. That's great. Good. Others, some other things you're doing for hospitality.
We are fighting the battle to be truly hospitable. That's what we're doing. We know what we want it to be. I'm come back from Orange, our director of faith formation, who's I think on this as well. She comes back from Orange. We know what hospitable feeling we're looking for and articulating that. And but when the people that are two most excited to have people back in the building are 94 and mid 80s, they go back to our greeters sit on this bench and greet people if they come over to them. And like, they're trying to think, okay, who are the families? And fighting, it's not just families who are going to be, out in the parking lot greeting people as they walk in. So we're fighting that battle of who are those, be outside the doors, waving those signs around, but also won't like dart into the parking lot and get run over. Because that's kind of how our parking lot is set up. Like there isn't a, so it's, yeah, the kids who I know would be the best at it are the most likely to dart in front of a car. And so it's like fighting that tension, but.
I love it. So Josh, when you talk about sort of people finding right people, I think many of us on this side of COVID have experienced, how do I say this, the kind of reluctance at times of people diving in to volunteer types of positions. Are you experiencing that?
Yeah, nobody signs up for anything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think the season we went through, people have reevaluated, and at times they, unfortunately, at times they choose hockey over Jesus, and so I think we're all wrestling with that a little bit. Andy, down in Kansas, everybody loves Jesus more than hockey, don't they?
We don't know what hockey is in Kansas. But back on the volunteer issue, we had the attendance back far before we could do children's services because we didn't have the volunteers for that. So that became a matter of just, I hate to say it this way, but one of the ways we define a pastor is that a pastor is that center column in your washing machine that's known as an agitator, that we legitimately would just agitate and say, hey, we'll do child services next week if 5 people volunteer before you go home today. If not, just don't plan on bringing your kids. Or and we had to get hardline on some of that stuff because we couldn't get the volunteers. So totally with you. But one of the things, this is not Christmas. If I could just share this with you, I have 13 location pastors, and I fired them all last June and rehired them on the same call. I said, you're all fired because I don't need pastors anymore. I need church planters. Everything's new. You have to think like a church planter, because if you're waiting for them to come back or you're looking for how it was, that's never going to happen. You've got to start thinking like a church planter. And I would encourage you guys, don't grieve anymore. We've grieved over the losses of COVID. But those who went out from you were not among you. So right now, if they come back, it's a bonus. Right now, it is what it is. We got what we got. Let's take that hill, baby. Let's go. Let's do it.
I love that. I love that, Andy, because I think we've all experienced it. We've all experienced folks who have gone away and they're not going to come back, and they're not with us, and that's okay. Sometimes people walking away can be the best thing for the ministry of your church. Good. Well, hey, one last thing. So we talked about invitation, Christmas theme, community service, Christmas Eve hospitality. The last one is returning to the first one, and it's talking about invitation. How do we leverage the Christmas experience with those folks that are re-engaged for the evening, people who are guests, who are visitors? How do we invite them to take that next step? At Calvary, after Christmas, our next worship series is always, we might have said a while back, a kind of a seeker series. It's a series for people who question their faith, who doubt their faith, aren't certain about this whole Jesus thing. And so this year, we have a series after Christmas called Asking for a Friend. And we're going to go through a list of 5 questions that are those kind of deep questions that people have when it comes to the life of faith. And we're just going to talk really openly and over the course of 5 weeks after Christmas about those. Christmas Eve, we're going to hand out cards to people as they leave the church that say, we're so glad you're here. Thank you for being a part of this. We'd love for you to join us for this series in January. And so that's a little of what we do, always having a next step. What's the next opportunity for those folks to join us? Andy, that was real quick what we're doing. What about you?
Here's real quick what we do. The first thing is you got to make sure that you have a way to collect the information on who showed up. It's one thing to count heads and say we had X number of people, but if you don't know who they are, there is no ability to follow up. And it was probably a lot of work that is going to go wasted. So make sure that that's a huge part. Matter of fact, we say in those services, we don't take offerings at our Christmas Eve service. We're just not going to do it. but we would love for you to give an offering today. And the offering is, who are you? We'd love to know who you are. Would you please let that be your offering today? And on that, we have them indicate whether they're an attender, a member, or a guest, because the follow-up on that is going to be two-pronged. Everybody gets an email, right? That's easy, or a letter. But if they're a guest, then they get a phone call. They're going to get a personalized follow-up from the location pastor. And that has borne a lot of fruit for us to say that this guy or gal is going to give you a call in the next couple of weeks, and they follow up. Now, I would also concur, and this is the last thing, the series that follows the next step, that is always big, but I don't think it always has to be. I think that's a great option, what you're doing, Hans. But I think one of the other options that we've seen great success with is we do a financial series. They just tanked their finances in December. And we actually called it the Great Christmas Reset a couple of years ago, which was pretty funny. And then we did a whole Dave Ramsey thing alongside with it. This year, we decided to go a different route. I'll let you know if it works or not. But we're doing a 30-week series, but broken up into 3 different series, 10 weeks apiece, going through the Gospel of John. And so our thought is we're going to get you started. And then if you have any OCD about you, you're not going to be able to leave for 29 weeks. So we'll have you throughout the rest of the year. So we're really going to push this as a jump into the life of our community. We'll do it campaign style and get them on board with our grow groups. But yeah, you have to capture it and then be able to follow through on it and then just utilize. The last thing, and because I know this is the last block, let me just say this. Our little church started off 19 years ago with 127 people, and that was 25% of what it had been in its heyday. We were really struggling. I came on board as a young and dumb seminary guy, and I've only fixed one of those things in the last 20 years. But we said we wanted to reach 10% of our community, which was asinine because there are 40,000 people in Reno County. That meant a church of 127 wanted to reach 4,000 people. Well, Christmas has become our thing where we reach all of our people, come together, all of our visitors. And in 2019, right before the great year of COVID, we actually had 4,046 people come to our 8 services. And there was this moment that we sat back and we went, that's what it'll look like when we're doing every week what we think God's called us to do. And that was 8 services in a weekend, and it was terrifying and it was exhausting. But what we did that year was the first year that we really took stock. Who is here? What are your names? How are you connected? And we realized that when we do our job, it's the follow-up. The event was great, but it's the follow-up that bears the fruit. It was, we have the names, we have the energy. Now it's no longer Christmas. How do we meet their needs? How do we invite them in? So that's just a little bit of hopefully inspiration, but also perspiration for you. The follow-up is just as important as the event. So make sure you get that collectible data.
Andy, can I ask you to get super practical? How do you do that? I mean, what does that actually look like? Because I think we struggle, especially in our tradition, we struggle with that kind of stuff. Tell us what it looks like.
We have 3 options, one of which is involuntary. It's kind of sad. We have a real techno guru guy who, if you will sign in using our guest Wi-Fi, and we're estimating now that about 25 to 30% of our people use our guest Wi-Fi when they're in the house. Once they've done that, to get on the guest Wi-Fi, they've registered. Now, every single time they come in the building and their phone connects, it automatically registers them whether they choose to or not. So we know if they're there or they're not, and they're a regular. Second, we use an app, and I shied away from using this because I know not everybody has that, but a lot of the things that we use to engage and give away and connect are app-based. We will push the app like nobody's business, say, hey, we're giving this away, or this is a resource, or use this for your family. All you got to do is sign up, and we actually give time for it right there. But when they get the app, they're signing up. They're giving us their contact information, and we know who they are. And then we also have tear off cards for those who are still using flip phones, or if they're in that Gen X or above like I am, and they have a phone, but they just left it at home because they don't like it anyway. So we have the little cards that you can tear off and put in the offering bucket or take to the Welcome Center. And if you take it to the Welcome Center and you turn that in, we actually have a free gift for you today. So we'll use at least 2 digital and 1 print version of doing it. I've even heard of greeters, and this is not a strategy that we have, But if somebody says, do you have a pen? Or if you see them doing this, like, I don't know how to fill this out, that they will go sit next to them in the aisle or sit next to them and say, hey, let me fill that out for you. And they actually do it and turn it in for them. So we're just very aggressive with that information. We almost look like a Russian hacker. We would just want the digits on you. That's what we want. If we can just get in your world, we will be on you like white on rice. We're there.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy, for getting really specific. I really
Sure.
appreciate that. All right, crew. I recognize we've gone 45 minutes. I want to be respectful. I know a number of you have other commitments that are coming up real short. Anything else that I'd love to hear from you? What kind of any questions you might have, or number two, any other kind of ways that you're inviting people to take a next step? All right, let's Taylor, I saw your hand up. Taylor, what are you doing?
So real quick, if it could be like a 4.5 on the 5 questions. So I'm all about doing the hospitality different, but I hear Andy talking about how it was kind of a return of members. Hans, you're kind of focused on seeker as well, at least leading up to Christmas. My stress is this: so our attendance is solid, but it is definitely down from pre-COVID. So this being like the first big event outside of normal Wednesday, Sunday worship, where there might be the return of many folks that haven't been here ever or before, or that haven't been here for a long time. How are we doing hospitality and prepping our buildings or scheduling our services in a way, I guess that would be responsible as there continues to be spikes. Historically, we have 2 services that have fantastic attendance and 2 services that are pretty meh. And my worry is that, like, again, so our biggest service this year has been like 400 people, but if there's 600 people, I don't know that I have room for 200 more, even not safely in our sanctuary right now with spacing of the pews and stuff. So how are we prepping for those that have an expectation, whether they're longtime members or first time attenders, to our space that's still realistic to what's going on in the world?
Mm-hmm. And Andy, I don't know if you've seen the news lately, but in Minnesota, we're the kind of leading the nation in COVID transmission right now. So that's what he's speaking a little bit to.
Well, I just spoke in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, about a month ago, and was up there for a Converge conference, and closer to your neck of the woods. And what I realized is that I don't have the ability, Taylor, to help with this because I haven't seen but a smattering of masks since last spring. Things in Kansas are very different. We're just very much a very red state that is thumbing their nose at the whole issue. So we actually get made fun of if we try and be safe. So I apologize. You guys are in a different different place there, but let me just admire you for this. When I was up there and saw the precautions that were being taken, here's what I walked away from it. Whether or not it was comfortable or easy, I felt like it meant that church cared about me and cared about my family when you were taking those precautions. So again, I don't have an answer for you, but the fact that you're even asking the question, I think is already going to help people say, okay, they care about us. So
Sergi.
Yeah, we just had we spent probably the last 3 weeks in staff meeting trying to figure this out because we have no clue what to expect. We used to do, because it was easy to say, oh, last year at Christmas Eve pre-COVID, right? We did 5 services and every year it was the same amount of people at each service. And we have no idea who's going to show up, if they're going to show up, and the type of people that are going to be showing up. And so what we decided to do is we're doing fewer services, but we're spreading them out. So we're going to really push a Wednesday night one. And Hans, you kind of shared that with me, and we kind of took that idea, but we're going to do Wednesday, and then 4 on Christmas Eve. But we also are asking people, which not to register, but we're trying to figure out a way to encourage them to let us know that they're attending, so that we can plan accordingly. Because my worry is as what Taylor was alluding to, my worry is like, wow, we didn't anticipate 400 people showing up to our 1:30. And if we know like 2 weeks in advance that, wow, we're already over 300, maybe we need to adjust some times or something. Plus it's kind of hopefully it's a way that we can also collect information for emails and so forth, but we don't want to use the term register. We don't want to use the term tickets or anything like that. We just want to encourage people to help us plan better and accordingly, by telling us who, what worship service they plan on attending and how many.
Aaron, yeah, I'll just piggyback on that. So this year, we've had a trend of doing this, of spreading out Christmas, because people's commitment levels to going to church on Christmas Eve are just in a different place than maybe they used to be. So we do a service on Wednesday, we do a service on Thursday, and then we'll do 3 on Friday. And so what we do every year is we encourage people to consider attending a service that maybe isn't their first choice, for our insider folk to say, hey, how about you make room for folks who this might be the only time they attend church all year. Let's try and make some room for them. And I think it's also a strategy that fits for COVID, to say, let's spread this out a little bit more. Let's make some more room. We've separated our services as much as we can on Christmas Eve. But I think it is a real challenge. I also think, and I may be totally wrong, if people are real, everybody has their own opinion about this, but if people are feeling uncomfortable, I just don't think they're coming to church on Christmas Eve, because they know how packed it is. Now, I don't know if that helps at all, Taylor. That's where online, the stuff we're doing online, you guys are doing online, is so important.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Nobody brought up online. Are we not doing online for Christmas Eve? or is that a whole new Zoom meeting? Christmas Eve online. Yeah,
I assume we're all doing some sort of online experience, and we have folks who faithfully attend, who are COVID conscious, but they aren't ready to darken the doors of our building. And they are just as much a part of our church family as those that do every week. Anything else folks are doing to kind of invitation, or any questions you have, or anything you're kind of fussing with or thinking about for Christmas this year? All right. Hearing none, how about a round of applause for Andy today? Andy, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Andy is a part of our partner network advisory board, and he's just been a huge asset. So thank you, Andy, for being a part of the conversation today. And we're going to be trying to do this on a monthly basis. So John will be sending out some information on our next one real soon. If you have any questions about the network, our resources, being a partner, we'd love to talk a little bit more with you about that. But thanks, and we'll be praying for you as you get ready for Christmas, everybody. We're grateful for all of you. Thanks for the good work you do.